Yes, hello, and welcome to another Confessions podcast. Thank you for downloading this audio array of terrible tales from the very sinful Radio 2 listener. More listeners, more sins than any other radio station anywhere in the world. Anyway, here we go with a concise collection involving a ludicrously lustful lawyer, a problematic puppetry palaver, good, a consummate car parking catastrophe, also good. It's got some amazing voice acting in, by the way, listen out for that. And a kitty catastrophe. Here it all comes. We said goodbye to you on Friday. Big emotional farewell.
Oh, was that me you were talking about? I couldn't remember for a second.
What are you doing here?
Well, I've been here today anyway. I've been clearing my desk, and keen listeners will have noticed that I introduced the 2 o'clock news because I was doing the twiddling of the knobs.
For Jeremy's outside broadcast?
For Jeremy's, yeah, so just in case it all went wrong. And, of course, with me at the helm, good chance. I could have spoken.
This is your swan, so this is your farewell confession,
my
definitely.
Farewell, indeed.
Yeah. And you won't be here tomorrow, surprisingly.
I promise, Rebecca,
Okay.
I promise.
And Brother Mike Williams is here.
Good to be back.
I can't remember if you're a forgiving type or not.
I believe on my one previous outing on Confessions I did forgive.
Only
yes.
one? Have you only done one?
A soft touch in comparison with Brother Matt. Anyway, tonight's comes from Graham, and it's the only confession that I've ever had which is written in bullet points, numbered bullet points. Okay,
Are you going to read it like
they're
that?
numbered from 1 to 15. Yeah. Dear Father Simon, says Graham, I have a few points to make. 1. The following is written anonymously but truthfully. In that spirit, I seek the absolution of the assembled fraternal gathering. 2. I'm a provincial commercial barrister.
Oh.
Not barista, as someone earlier commented. Barristers in the main get their work from solicitors. We barristers work with solicitors as closely as we can, since at the end of the day, solicitors' recommendations are what our income depends on. 3. We are also subordinate to our clerks in chambers. They are the people who seek out new work and lead us because they manage our diary. If we manage to offer professional and timely service, this helps everybody. 4. When you are presented with a serious case to advise on from a solicitor in London, who has been kind enough to seek out one of us provincial chaps specifically, your clerk will remind you that it is indeed an opportunity to create a serious relationship with a serious solicitor with a great deal of heavyweight work. An opportunity to impress, sir, is how it's described in clerk speak. 5. One such solicitor approached me with a case via my clerk. My clerk was an understated man, reminiscent of Sir Humphrey from Yes, Prime Minister. But even within his limited range of emotional animation, he sounded mildly excited. This was indeed an opportunity to further all of our interests. The solicitor was from London. 6. The call was received in the week leading up to a summer bank holiday weekend. I made various promises and the papers were sent. 7. The professional barrister has the best of things and the worst of things. You are self-employed and can work when you want. As long as deadlines are met, the rest is up to you. But urgent work can ruin the best laid plans. 8. My partner, now ex-partner, had planned the bank holiday weekend away, which is what we did. But the weekend was marred by an entirely different case, which required my attention for much of the time. Monday, in particular, was ruined. 9. Rachel, for it was she, made-up name, had been patient but plainly felt unappreciated. I dealt with that by adding an extra day to our break. We would go home on Tuesday night rather than Monday, and on Tuesday we would spend time together alone. 10. Tuesday came, a beautiful and hot day. If success were to be measured by money alone, we achieved very little that morning, but if you were to take a wider view, we enjoyed a very satisfactory start to the week. 11. At about 11 o'clock, my phone rang. It was a new phone with lots of bells and whistles, and I hadn't entered any contact numbers yet. I took the call, not knowing who it was calling me, and put it on speaker. It was the London solicitor. He'd been hoping to find my advice in his emails that morning, but saw nothing. I made some excuses. 12. I didn't lie, though. I explained that the papers were on my desk and would receive my full attention that day. It was all under control. I didn't tell him that I was lying in bed with my other half, both of us looking rosy. Playful, if you like, and unkempt.
Nicely put.
I thought so. 13. Not much was said on the other end of the phone, and the conversation drew to an end. I'd got away with it, I thought. I hung up, looking at the screen as I ended the call. And then I saw it. Firstly, a picture of a London solicitor sat at his desk.
No!
And then, when the line went dead, a picture of myself and Rachel looking at the screen from our pillows.
Oh, no.
That is hilarious.
It had been a video call. I had never had one of those before. 14. Now, I don't know what the guy saw. The camera had been pointing in the direction of Rachel throughout the call, and the picture of ourselves, once the call ended, did accurately portray our circumstances, Rachel's in particular. 15. I completed the paperwork on time as promised, and indeed my instructing solicitor saw to it that my bill was paid immediately. However, I have never heard from him again. So, in conclusion, I seek forgiveness from a number of parties. Not my client, they got their advice. Not the solicitor, he needs to accept that the rhythms of life beat slightly differently north of Kensington. No, Father Simon, I'd like forgiveness from my clerk, who has remained steadfastly silent about the disappearance of such a gold-plated lead, which would have enriched himself, let alone me, and most importantly Rachel, who has had to accept that her involuntary exposure to some chap in London is something she will have to bear, so to speak, for the rest of her days. And so I ask the assembled tribunal of truth to be merciful. I had lost a bank holiday weekend and was making amends to the person closest to me. A certain amount of shrapnel escaped into the wider world, but it was not sent there with any malice, says Graham. I suspect there might be some other... I hadn't thought of video call confessions, and I think that's the first one that we've had. But anyway, what a moment there for Graham and Rachel. Sister Rebecca.
That is a fantastic confession. Yeah. I love the way it's written in bullet points as well, because it belies the emotional trauma of the whole experience. I think, he still did the job, as it were, and, got the solicitor's contract done, whatever he had to do. So in a way, there's nothing to forgive. But obviously if the solicitor saw him in a compromising position, then, you've got to have priorities in this life. He prioritised his wife over his clerk.
Yes.
So that's fair enough, and I'm going to forgive.
Just another half, I think. But anyway, that's the modern world.
Talking of the modern world, it's all to do with pushing the wrong button, isn't it, really?
Is it?
Yes, you did the work. That was the thing. So I'm going to forgive, I think. And Rachel, don't worry too much about Rachel. The chances of her meeting the chap at the other end are very slim, anyway.
You might think, unless she too was... involved in
the wrong button and
the world of legality.
Went video.
Maybe she was a
didn't
barista.
say.
No.
But I think you got away with it. Don't worry about it. Life's too short.
Okay, let's see what Brother Mike makes of it all.
Well, these are going to become more and more commonplace.
You have to shout at this point.
In my best Matt Williams
if you're
impression.
depping for Matt,
okay, I'll back off the mic. But they are going to become more commonplace, aren't they, with the advance of technology and video phones and FaceTime and the rest. I was speaking to a colleague recently, not a video call, and we had a 10-minute chat about a work-related issue, and then I heard a toilet flushing in the background. He'd spent the whole call in the toilet. I think these are becoming more commonplace, but as the others have said, he did work over the weekend when he was originally meant to be away with his wife. He was prioritising his wife on the Tuesday and spending some time with him, and he was paid for it and the work was done, so I think I would forgive as well.
The work was done.
Brett at Sheffield, can Deadly do some voice effects, please, one last time before he... the trouble is, he wasn't really very welcome to do...
I never am, to be honest, but yes. Here, I'm just going to go below water now. Here we go. Dive in. Help! I'm drowning.
Fabulous performance there. Deadly, thank you very much indeed. You've been
pleasure.
fantastic on Confessions. Anyway. Tonight's tale is from Don. Thank you very much for tonight's tale. Father Simon, after your recent Dalek confession, I thought I'd share a similar tale. This was a brother who terrified his younger brother by pretending that the Daleks had invaded the Lake District, I think, in Cumbria, or one particular hotel at the end of their lane, anyway. As an older brother, also chastised with a thrashing, different time, Simon, I too terrified my younger brother. I was on the cusp of becoming a teenager, and so my interest lay equally with Top of the Pops, as well as Supercar, Captain Scarlet, Thunderbirds, and Doctor Who. Living in Africa in the 1960s, we watched these programmes in black and white on our tellies. The barren sets of imagined space and aliens was all the more real as we looked out across the open savannah from our sitting room. The moonlight cast us into the same monochromatic landscape of vast heavens and isolation, which ATV so successfully imagined and created in their studios. It gave us an extra frisson. This is almost poetry.
It is.
It's quite moving. Our house was a concoction of random added rooms with wiring and light switches snaking all over the place. As a result, the bathroom light switch was several steps away from the bathroom door in the corridor. Captain Scarlet. Now, we were just talking about Captain Scarlet just during that last tune. And Mike was a Captain Scarlet fan. Bobby's not really that interested. But Rebecca, classic comment, said,
What, Thunderbirds? Very noisy.
Very noisy. That's the only thing that
They
she
were
could think.
blasting to outer space.
Wait, all the time, though. That's all
It's
they
just
did.
so noisy. Anyway, Captain Scarlet was quite noisy as well. Anyway, Captain Scarlet had some particularly scary storylines, and the one series that frightened me the most and terrified my 7-year-old brother was the fight with the Mysterons. For those who are unfamiliar with the episode, Captain Scarlet landed in this remote and alien landscape with his crew, whereupon the more powerful Mysterons hovered above their spacecraft, illuminating it with a pair of headlights, and a disembodied voice boomed and echoed. I'd like a deep, big voice, please, Simon. Okay.
This is the voice of the Mysterons. We know that you can hear us, Earthmen. You attacked our complex on Mars, and you will pay a heavy price.
There you go. Now, you know, that was one of my better voices.
Sounds like you were about to
Very
burp
good.
every time you were talking.
Anyway, it made my hair stand on end, says Don, and my younger brother squeaked with fright and hid behind a cushion. My mother, who had had a tough day at work, spent this last hour in the kitchen making supper, but could hear the telly, and as the episode came to an end, told my brother to have his bath before supper, and a plan hatched in my elder brotherly mind. My mother is no fool, and after 10 minutes called out asking what I was doing. "Nothing," I called out innocently. She detected that something was afoot about the unexplained silence, and she was absolutely right. I made sure that my brother was properly starkers and concentrating on washing when the lights suddenly went out. Pitch blackness. Through the open door, a torch beam moved slowly across the wall towards my terrified brother, while I tried to mimic the basso profundo.
This is the voice of the Mysterons. We know that you can hear us, Earthmen.
My brother's scream could be heard clear across the savannah, and unfortunately by my mother, who thought that he was being attacked by lions. Gaffed, torch in hand, and now all the lights on, my mother assessed the situation in a trice. She comforted my terrified, naked, and now cold youngest brother who'd run outside to escape the sinister and vengeful Martians, who were, after all, only seeking to revenge attacks by human astronauts on their space city. Good bit of plot update there. She then returned to the kitchen for the wooden spoon.
Different times.
Yeah. Writing this has taken me too long, as I have been helpless with laughter typing it 46 years later. And I do seek forgiveness from my family, and most of all from my little brother. So I particularly like this, actually. And for people of a certain age, it will have terrified them all over again. So a little bit of Captain Scarlet. Thunderbirds, so noisy, didn't you? I did think it was noisy. Anyway, Don would like your forgiveness, please. What do you say, Sister Rebecca?
Well, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I do feel sorry for the little brother, but on the other hand, it's part of the course, really, if you've got siblings, that they're going to terrify you on occasions. And I guess what, just makes you stronger, doesn't it? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Right. So I am going to forgive.
Terrified, lots of people, yes, terrified of Horndean, is scared of the Mysterons, as indeed a lot of people are. Sister Bobby from the Priory.
Oh, God, this is a difficult one. It's interesting that little boy was frightened of the Mysterons, but he wasn't scared about living within a bite size of lions, tigers and bears.
He was fine with that.
But he did make his little boy brother run out naked into the potential mouths of any of those wild animals. And I think scaring anyone littler than you is a bit weak. So do you know what? Don, you are unforgiving, you meanie.
Terrifying brothers and sisters is a very rich theme for us. Confessions at bbc.co.uk. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can forgive either, to be honest. This is a bit close to home for me because, as you mentioned, I was a fan of Captain Scarlet and knew how scary these Mysterons were. But he's absolutely right about the torch, because I think, if I remember rightly, the symbol of the Mysterons was these two rings of light that crept across the wall closer to your victim.
Very expensive effect it was.
I can only imagine how scary, how scared the poor lad must have been in the bath. So, as I said, I don't think I can forgive this one.
No forgiveness? OK. BBC Radio 2 is another drive time confession, and one that might be testing me in my accent department just a little bit. But I'm going to do my very best, which is all I can ask, really. It comes from Nigel. Actually, yesterday had an African theme, and that's where we're heading with this one. Nigel says, Father Simon, I'm writing to beg for forgiveness for a sin I committed nearly 16 years ago. It's December 1999, and I was staying in Sydney, Australia, for a friend's wedding. Though it was the height of their summer and the middle of the cricket season, there were sadly no games to take in during my stay there. I've always thought that modern sports stadia are the modern-day cathedrals, such is their history and atmosphere. I'd never seen the Sydney cricket ground, and I was keen to see it. One afternoon, when the travelling group had all made plans of their own, I commandeered the hire car, switched on the radio, wound down the windows and set off to find the SCG, my camera in hand and a few Aussie dollars in my pocket to buy my cricket-mad nephew a souvenir. I could see the ground from the dual carriageway I was on, and using my gut navigation instinct, made my way towards the venue. It was one of those frustrating scenes when, whichever road you took, you didn't seem to be getting any closer to the target. I took a left and then a right and swept into a large open-air car park complex divided into hedged-off sections close to the entrance. Over the radio I could hear a strange sort of crunching sound, which seemed to be getting louder, like the sound of someone clearing their throat. A loud and very brash Aussie voice interrupted the moment. "Or you, expletive." It's been changed, obviously, as we go. Shouted a blonde surfing dude with long dreadlocked hair. "You're driving over my Christmas lights."
That was quite good.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was only just a brief phrase. I've been training all day. It's been so precious. I realised the crunching noise was in fact the sound of light bulbs bursting under my tyres. "I'm ever so sorry," I said, and then realised that my accent had quickly betrayed me as a pommy expletive. Who was there for the taking? I muttered another apology, but tried to shift the blame by questioning why he'd laid them out on a public road in the first place. This seemed to antagonise him further, so I made my exit to the sound of crunching as more bulbs burst under my tyres. I could see him in the rear mirror waving frantically, but it wasn't a particularly friendly wave. I eventually found the souvenir shop and negotiated the revolving door like Mr. Bean. There were 3 middle-aged assistants, straight off the set of Neighbours, behind the desk with heads buried in files and showing no inclination to sell me anything. They started talking to each other. "Hey, Bruce, did you hear about the Christmas lights?" "No, Sheila. I didn't. They were stolen last night. They were taken from the trees, all of them, right under our noses. All of them were taken." "'Struth, mate. What are we going to do?" "Well, apparently Barry has sorted it. He's got the last industrial set available down at the Light Mart, and he's putting them up now." I realised what I'd done. Then the phone rings, and the other woman answers. "Barry? What? No, I don't. But someone's driven... No. What are you going to do now, Barry?" My heart sank and my pulse raced as Barry obviously gave a description of the pommy expletive who had just driven over his lights, and I could feel 3 sets of eyes burning a hole in my back. I turned and looked them in the eye, and in my best South African accent... Okay, now, at this point, before I try this, fortunately we have Susie is a show producer, and she comes from South Africa. So, Susie, you're going to have to give me some help here, okay? So I'll cue you up. Ready? You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. I turned and looked them in the eye, and in my best South African accent said...
"Hello, how's it? It's not me you want, it's him."
"Hello, how's it? It's not me you want, it's him." How was that?
That was
Okay,
good.
all right. And I pointed at another car that was exiting the car park. And then I said, this line here.
"All I want is some souvenir sweaters."
"All I want is some souvenir sweaters."
Very good, very good.
And I quickly made my accent. See, if you have proper coaching, you might as well take it. So anyway, I ask forgiveness, Father Simon, not just for throwing the Christmas of thousands of cricket-loving Australians in Sydney that year into darkness, but from Barry for being so clumsy and then not offering to pay for the replacements. My guilt has been an intolerable weight to carry for the last 15 years, and old wounds are open every time I see the New Year fireworks from Sydney Harbour. Thank you very much indeed. This is Nigel, who broke the last set of lights, didn't stop, and then pointed at the other car and said it was him. He was looking for souvenir sweaters. No, I'll just leave it to Susie, I think. OK, so very good. What do we think of that, Sister Rebecca? What do you?
That was amazing. That just brought me. I felt like I was travelling all over the world during that confession.
Like a piece of drama.
Arrived back in the room. I thought, Nigel, what a quick-thinking bloke to put on that accent and pretend that it wasn't the expletive pom that they were thinking he was. But I think actually, who drives over somebody's Christmas lights and breaks them and then doesn't offer to replace them, doesn't even stop? I mean, there's no excuse for that, really.
Well, maybe he only had a few Aussie dollars, I suppose.
I know, but he didn't even stop and apologise. He just ran off. So I can't forgive you. Sorry, Nigel.
Maybe it was Barry, the blonde surfing dude, who annoyed him just a little bit. Anyway, Sister Bobby from the prior.
Ditto. I have exactly the same. You should have stopped. You should have apologised. And at the very least, you should have paid. However, of course, the guy had bought the last set, so he couldn't go and buy more. So their Christmas lights were absolutely ruined. So he ruined their Christmas. He lied, impersonated somebody else because he was gutless in front of the ladies. Well, he could have even then said, look, ladies, this was my fault. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy loads of sweaters to make up for it. So, yeah, unforgiven.
If you had to do an accent, Bobby, to get out of something, what accent would you do?
I could do none. I am accentless.
Rebecca,
so
what would you do?
Well, I know what I would do, but I'm not going to say, and I'm not going to do it on the radio. I'll tell you later. Because it's just, come on, it's asking for mockery, isn't it?
Is it a Chinese accent?
No.
Is it Italian accent?
No, it's a British accent from somewhere around.
Anyway, Mike, brother Mike, what do you say to Nigel here?
Well, not only were they Christmas lights, we're missing a trick here, aren't we? Because didn't he say the date was December 1999?
Yes.
These could well be millennium celebrating lights as well.
He spoiled 1,000 years of history.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose accidentally driving over the bulbs and fleeing in the heat of the moment, possibly forgivable, but pinning the blame on someone else as well, some unknowing person driving out of the car park, that for me, like the other two, is unforgivable, I'm afraid.
So, no forgiveness from Nigel. It's time for a drive time confession. If you have one, by the way, confessions@bbc.co.uk. We'll see who this one's from in a moment. Dear Father Simon and the ecclesiastical posse. This is going to stretch me again. I've been stretched quite a lot this week in the acting department.
You're doing very well.
Thank you very much. With a bit of guidance and a bit of tuition, I'm not sure this is going to work quite so well. I write to you for forgiveness, for I may have sinned. My wife Katie and I moved to our little town in 2006. With us, we brought our Persian cat, Millie. Being a sucker for all things feline, my wife began to feel that one wasn't enough, and after a little gentle persuasion, we agreed to get 2 kittens. I was also aware that my wife was getting broody, and I thought that this might buy me a little time. And so we got our other 2 moggies, Maggie and Steve, both jet black in colour. One morning, several months later, I noticed Maggie and Steve playing together outside. I then had to rub my eyes as a third, almost identical black cat joined them. Over the coming weeks, this cat became a regular outside our house and started venturing in, turning up on our sofa, eating our cat's food, and generally socialising with our other furry occupants. They would sleep together and wash together and appeared to be really good chums. So regular were these meetings that we came to think of him as one of our own. So Sam and I made the decision that we'd keep him. He was obviously a stray, as he was quite thin and a little ragged, and as I say, he spent most of his time with us. So we decided to get him inoculated and castrated. I don't know why I stumbled over castrated. Anyway, that's inoculated and castrated. Our others had been, and so we wanted to ensure that he didn't spread anything nasty. We also decided to name him Perry, though I'm not sure why. He went in for his op, and we nursed him for a couple of days, before sticking a shiny new collar on him and then letting him out. A couple of days passed, and there was no sign of him. He appeared to have vanished, until one day the cat flap snapped into life, and a proud-looking Perry waltzed in, meowing and purring as he went, except something was different. It suddenly dawned on me that Perry was wearing a shiny new collar, but it wasn't the shiny new one that we'd bought him. It was a Burberry-type design, and it had a little screw-top messaging holder attached to it. This was all most unusual. I undid the screw and pulled out the piece of paper that was rolled up inside. In tiny writing it said, "Hi, my name is Fred. You castrated me. Love don't live here anymore." You castrated me. It continued, "And you didn't have my permission. Thanks for nothing. Please don't kidnap me again." And that was it. None the wiser. I don't seek forgiveness from the true owners. They should have been responsible pet owners, and they got a freebie, as far as I was concerned. Anyway, I do, however, seek forgiveness from Perry or Fred. I'm sure he knows we acted in good faith, even if it cost him his stray cat Strut. Yours, a friend of Fred Perry. So he ended up with being Fred and being Perry. You castrated me. Love don't live here anymore. Anyway, it's a veterinary option. Anyway, I like it very much. It's signed a friend of Fred Perry, which is why I didn't tell you who it was from right at the very beginning. So I suppose this kind of thing does happen, and they were acting in good faith. Maybe they shouldn't have assumed. I don't know. What do you think, Sister?
That was brilliant, short but sweet, and hilarious. I think the fact that I mean, the owner, Fred's owners, clearly had a great sense of humour. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done that. And the fact that Fred or Perry came through the cat flap strutting means that he hadn't really lost his.
He did had a slightly different swagger.
I suppose so. But he didn't sound sad particularly.
Come on, hook up with me, ladies.
I think he was fine. So I think the fact that everyone retained their sense of humour, including the cat, means I'm going to forgive.
Bobby from the Priory.
Well, what's a great shame is we don't meet the original owners, because, of course, if they were really cross, because Perry or Orphan Cat, originally, they put a new collar on and a contact number, obviously. So that owner could have called them and say, what did you do to my cat? But they didn't, so I loved it. Well, great sense of humour. I wish I'd known who they were. And, of course, the cat would be fine.
Forgiveness, then? Are you
Definitely, absolutely,
forgiveness?
100% brilliant.
Mike, what do you say?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a hat-trick of forgiveness. I'm not a cat owner myself, but I just love the note in the collar. Clearly, as we've all said, a sense of humour. So, yeah, it's got to be forgiven.
Well, they were this week's confessions. Very good in places. If it has sparked a thought, put it down on an email. You can go via the website, of course. But if you just want to email confessions@bbc.co.uk, that would be very good, and we could feature your tale very soon. More on a weekend. The Weekly Mayo, available to download any time now, really.